Welcome to the Parents Against Vaping, E-Cigarette, PAVe podcast, Big Tobacco Messed with the Wrong Moms. I'm Meredith Berkman.
I'm Dorian Furman, and we're the Wrong Moms.
And today we're really excited to have with us three of the right moms, three women, partners, friends, allies in the fight against flavored e-cigarettes out of Livermore, California. And they are widely known as the three Livermore moms. And we're about to tell you why.
Today we have Jannell, Kristie, and Paula from Livermore, and they have mounted an amazing fight against big tobacco and e-cigarettes. Jannell reached out to us over a year ago when she realized that vaping companies were selling to kids in her community. And she had the right instincts. She reported to the police, to the authorities, the bad actors who were selling to teens, and got a lot of pushback. So when she reached out to us, we knew we were kindred spirits and started communicating. So welcome, Jannell, and welcome Kristie and Paula, her two partners who joined the fight with her very soon after.
Maybe we could just start with that email. So maybe you can sort of set the stage for what led you to sending the email, and then we'd love to hear from each of you what brought you to the table for the fight, how you connected, and most importantly, how you, as three passionate moms, educated yourself about the problem, took action, and kicked JUUL essentially out of your hometown.
Yeah, thanks, Meredith and Doreen. And yeah, we're really excited to be part of this mom coalition of passionate parents who are really alarmed at the nature of these products and the marketing to our teens. My son was getting these products. I would smell them in the house, and we had the app Find Your iPhone, and I would track him, after school, and he would be over at this particular vape shop. We actually have several in Livermore, come to find out, but this particular shop, he would be in there for a few minutes, and then he'd come home, and my husband and I would bust him at the door. And after a couple of consequences directly to him, I decided to go talk to the shop owners myself because I felt like this was a repetitive occurrence and it was clear that this was happening. So unfortunately, when I went in twice over probably a 2-3 week time frame, and the people behind the counter completely denied selling to my son, even despite the picture on the iPhone where his location was being tracked, and the products that I brought back to them to show them, and a picture of my son. Here's my son, don't sell to him. And after the third time, I just kind of, with the same story that we don't sell to minors, we would never sell to minors, is what they would always tell me. I decided to report them to the local authorities. Unfortunately, in California, the way enforcement worked at that time was at the state level. Um, the local authorities really didn't have the bandwidth or the resources to do a lot of stings on tobacco, and it turns out we hadn't done one in Livermore in over 10 years. So we were able to energize our police department, but that was a little bit later. But yes, my husband and I decided that we would try to tackle this as parents and advocate for some change and some local teeth. I was able to connect with other parents that were having the same issue. So in that sense, it was a really positive thing. I was contacted by Paula and by Kristie, who immediately also seemed like-minded and passionate about this issue. There were a lot of parents who contacted me, but these two individuals, Kristie and Paula, were the ones that really wanted to do something about it. And we joined forces immediately and started pulling in other resources. We contacted we have a county anti-tobacco group So I was able to connect them with them and pull them in, which was great because they had policy options. They had a model for us, our city leaders, to follow if they chose to do any kind of licensing, local licensing, any of that kind of stuff. And away we went with their help and their guidance.
Kristie and Paula, did you guys know each other before? And did any of you know the other, or was this just a marriage made in parental activism?
This is Paula, and I knew Jannell from our kids' elementary school years. So that was probably 10 years had passed, maybe not quite 10 years had passed since I last saw Jannell or spoke to her. Her kids are a little older than Kristie and my children are. And Kristie, her kids are exactly the same year in school as my two boys. So we knew each other through elementary school. And then after that, the kids went in different directions, different schools, and then met back up again in high school. So we did have, I had previously known both Jannell and Kristie, but it had been years since I last spoke to them.
We have a similar story. I mean, I knew Dorian and our third co-founder, Dina. Our kids had started at a new school the year before that. So we knew each other, but we weren't close. Again, we came together over this issue. And I think it's probably good for parents to hear that you don't have to have your best friend in the fight with you. You know, people who are like-minded will come together and get things done. So what happened next? And I guess Jannell has sort of explained why she got activated. I mean, Paula and Kristie, if you feel comfortable, maybe briefly you could tell us why you guys got interested in this topic.
I'll continue. So back in early 2018, I discovered that my son was vaping. He actually was vaping in the house. I smelled something, and I went up to his bedroom and bathroom, and he was actually in the bathroom watching himself blow smoke out. He was, he was looking at the mirror and blowing smoke out, and I was horrified. And called up my husband, and I use this term often. We were blindsided, and I say that because growing up in the 60s and 70s, as I did in California, everywhere in the country, people smoked everywhere. They smoked in restaurants and homes, airplanes, and it always disgusted me. I hated cigarette smoking, and a lifetime non-smoker I was. I raised my boys from a young age to also be very concerned about smoking and the health hazards of smoking. My father died when they were very little, but they do remember my father having this long tail following him, and that was the oxygen tube that was connected to the oxygen that he had to wear. He had to use oxygen because he had COPD. My father was fortunate; he was well into his 80s before he passed away, but it was COPD that killed my father ultimately. So my boys knew, you smoke, you die. So I had no concern that my kids would go throughout life as non-smokers. So here I am in 2018 with a 16-year-old son, and suddenly I realized he's smoking, and I knew nothing about vaping, but I just knew that it wasn't a good thing. So anyway, that was 2018. That's when my personal family's horror started, to be quite honest, because this whole vaping situation has caused our family a tremendous amount of stress and worry and concern and strife. And so I was working for a local nonprofit at that time. I had some exposure to people within the school district and other places, and I thought, I need to see who else I could pull into this to understand the problem and maybe do something more about it. And I would pick my kids up at school and see kids walking out of the school, the main steps of the school, and they'd be blowing smoke out of their faces. So it wasn't hard to see that this problem was not just in my family room, but also, elsewhere within the community. So I was having a difficult time trying to connect to people within the community who felt as passionate about this potential problem as I did. And fast forward to August of 2018, and I was on social media, and there was this message from this woman I remembered from elementary school about 10 years prior, Jannell. And it was one simple question: are you concerned about, or do you believe that um, flavored flavored tobacco should be sold to minors or something? And it was yes or no, and I selected no, and then got in touch with Jannell, and the rest is kind of history.
That's such a powerful story. And I'm sure, so many people have similar stories, but you actually did something about it and you took action. So, I mean, it's so important. And Kristie, do you have a similar story?
I have two children the same ages as Paula's kids. And I had heard about vaping and e-cigarettes when my kids were in middle school. And I had just heard about it in the news, told my kids, this is bad stuff, stay away from it. It'll give you lung problems, and kind of left it at that. Well, my son started high school, and this was 2016. And he came home and said, you know, that vaping stuff you told me about, there are kids doing it at school, in the locker rooms. He was taking PE in the bathrooms. And I was so shocked to hear it was happening during school, in the schools. So my son has epilepsy, and he has seizures that are triggered by any number of things. He's pretty sensitive, and the seizures are life-threatening. It's the kind of thing where we have to immediately either get the medication into him and get him out of it, or rush him to an emergency room. And so I started to research whether his seizures could be triggered by vape smoke, because they can be triggered by all kinds of things. And it seemed from my research on Dr. Google that it was a possibility. So our next appointment with his neurologist, I said, you know, this thing with vaping and e-cigarettes, is secondhand smoke something that could trigger his seizures? And she said, you know, these products are so new, I can't say definitively. There's definitely some evidence that it could, and it has a lot of the same harmful effects of secondhand smoke as combustible cigarettes. So she said, you know, the safest thing is for him to exit. If that's happening where he is, he should leave. And so my son, who's very worried about seizures all the time, always on the lookout for his seizure feelings coming on, that then made school a very anxious place for him. If he got a whiff of it, if he saw it happening, he wanted to run. And it just made it very stressful. And so a couple of years later, so this was something we're always aware of and talked about at home. A couple of years later, I saw this post from Jannell and about vaping, and a lot of the comments from people were really just ignorant and just saying this isn't happening, this is bad parenting, or whatever they were saying. And I just thought it was so unfair. So I responded to her and just said, I thank you for raising this. This is a serious problem. I see it happening in the schools. And my son has subsequently pointed out to me when I picked him up from school that there were kids from his high school and the middle school across the street walking a couple blocks down the street to a vape shop after school. What were they doing in there? I mean, some of them may be buying chips and soda, but I guarantee some of them were buying vapes. And so I was aware what a serious problem this was in my own town. So I reached out to Jannell when I saw her post.
And then what happened?
What happened next is we got really fortunate to I reached out and aligned with this fantastic advocate from the county, the Anti-Tobacco Coalition at the county level. And they were so happy to hear from us, because this is what they do. They have all the data, all the statistics, all the tools, all the resources to help us move forward with advocating for change. And the three of us, the three moms, got together and said, what do we want? And the more and more we got educated about what these products are, how addictive these products are, the lack of regulation over these products, we said we have to get them out of our communities. We also met with school district officials. We were lucky too, in that sense, that they saw that we're passionate about this issue and protecting kids from another generation of developed smokers. We all agreed that the flavors were driving the demand, and we said we want these products out of our community. We built a coalition of anti-tobacco supporters, and we went. The three moms started making phone calls. We broke up the city council. There's 5 city council members, well, including the mayor, and we each individually took an opportunity to reach out to them. They were pretty skeptical in the beginning. They're kind of more from the old school. They didn't really know about vape and how much it had blown up. Everyone thinks that cigarettes are so passe and so uncool and so disgusting. I don't think there's anybody out there that thinks that cigarettes is a cool thing anymore. But these new vape products with the flavors and the sexy devices and the appealing the social media, um, they really got up to speed pretty quickly. And when they got up to speed with our help, they agreed that these products have no place in our community. And we advocated for policy change locally here in Livermore. And we were successful. It took about a year of advocating before it was a little over a year before our ban went into effect. And in the meantime, us three moms pulled in other moms from surrounding communities because we're in a valley of 3 communities, 3 separate cities with their own rules and regulations and laws. And it took a little time, but we were able to find other like-minded parents. And then we started working more and more with the county anti-tobacco groups, Breathe California, all these groups that are just so great and so passionate. And this is what they do for a living is to protect the consumer from these products and youth. And they advocate, this is what they do. So pulling those folks in, we all partnered, just like you guys partner. We were able to partner with national groups, and we were able to get our county to eventually ban these products. San Francisco was on the heels. We were the second city. I think we were only 2 days after San Francisco to ban devices. That was a big nationwide that had not been done. So San Francisco announced it, and then Livermore announced it 2 days later. So our city council really was on the forefront of leading this charge to ban the devices.
And for a small city like Livermore to attempt to take this on, frankly, was a little scary. But we did it, and then JUUL, as we passed our city ordinance, we were thrilled. And then I think 2 days later, we saw petitioners out in the street gathering signatures to overturn our ordinance, and they were paid by JUUL to come into Little Livermore and collect signatures to overturn a law we had just passed. And they said whatever they needed to do to get the signatures they needed. We heard stories all over town of the lies they were telling people about why they needed to sign this petition. So they collected the signatures they needed. They put a stop on our ordinance before it had a chance to take effect. And then we had a decision. We're at a decision point. Do we want to fight JUUL and try to protect our ordinance, or do we want to just let the ordinance be overturned and let them be successful? And there was a real decision to make, and we knew they had a lot of money they could pour into this town to say whatever they needed to say, like they did with the petitions to overturn the ordinance. But ultimately, we just really believed we were doing the right thing. We had a lot of support. We believe that though we may not be able to match them dollar for dollar, we can match them in terms of people power and boots on the ground. We were moms who had been fighting this. We've lived here, raised our children here. We have a lot of friends and connections. At this point, we had connections to the city leaders, community organizers. And so we said, we're going to do it. This is the right thing. We're going to protect our ordinance, and we're going to take them on. So our city council went along with us, and they voted to go ahead and put this on a ballot for the city to vote on, because ultimately the community will have to decide if they want to override this stop that was put on it by JUUL. And eventually, it was at the same time that all the health issues really exploded. And unfortunately, for all the youth and all the people who ended up in hospitals and the deaths
Talking about
that occurred,
Ivali.
yeah. And so that brought a lot of attention to the harms and also a lot of negative press to JUUL for their marketing. They were being sued left and right by school districts. It seemed like every other day there was a new lawsuit against JUUL. And so eventually I think JUUL decided Livermore wasn't worth fighting and they pulled out. And we were thrilled the day we went into our city attorney's office and he passed around the table a copy of the letter from JUUL's and they were withdrawing the referendum.
So thank you guys. I think you've given parents so much information, so much to work with, and so much encouragement that, you can join forces, reach out to people, and actually get things done. You are amazingly powerful moms. And someone said to us once, hell hath no fury like a mother scorned. And it's so true. And we're on the right side of the equation. And you know what? Together we can get it done. So thank you.
Thank you for all you've done.
Thank you for
Thank
everything.
you.
Thank you so much for listening to today's podcast, Big Tobacco Messed with the Wrong Moms.
If you're a parent and you want to get involved, please check out our website at parentsagainst.vaping.org.
We need passionate parents to join our grassroots movement across the country to protect our kids from the predatory behavior of big tobacco.
To get involved in local advocacy campaigns, please text PAVe, that is PAVE, to 72572. Parents' voices matter, and you can make a difference.
Do you have a teen or young adult at home that vapes? This is Quitting is a free and anonymous text message program designed to help young people quit vaping. Teens and young adults can text DITCH VAPE to 88709 to sign up today. That's provided by Truth, the National Youth Tobacco Prevention Campaign, from our partner and sponsor, the Truth Initiative. It's the first of its kind program that helps young people feel motivated, inspired, and supported while quitting. More than 150,000 young people have enrolled since the program launched in January 2019.
The messages include evidence-based tips and strategies to quit, combined with real feedback from young people. Again, teens and young adults can enroll by texting DITCH VAPE to 88709. Truth Initiative also offers free text messages for parents who are helping their children quit vaping. I myself enrolled in this program as well and would get different ideas and tips to help support my son. You can join the program by texting QUIT to 202-899-7550 or by visiting becomeanx.org to sign up.
To learn more about Truth Initiative and its programs, visit truthinitiative.org.